Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the mass shooting at Jacksonville, Florida. Now, as many of you may know, there was a mass shooting in Jacksonville, Florida on August 26, 2018 at approximately 1:30 p.m. According to Wikipedia.org, that is the time. Anyway, this was at a Madden gaming event at Chicago Pizza, I believe it was. Now, the ascendant, first I would talk about, well, two people had died, and there were 11 injuries, again, according to Wikipedia.org. And I want my condolences do go out to family members, anybody that sees this that was a family member or close friend of any of the casualties. Really, I mean, this is just another heinous, terrible act. I mean, we're just learning that there's virtually no safe haven, no matter where you go. I don't care what the crime rate is in an area. And it's sad that these mass shootings are almost becoming a norm. And I can understand why there may be people that are apprehensive and reluctant to come to America. And it really almost becomes shameful that we have to deal with this thing going on very persistently. It's terrible. But anyway, going back to the chart of this shooting, now at the chart of the shooting has the ascendant in Scorpio at 26 degrees. Now, being with the ascendant in Scorpio, of course, that's the most, as far as murderous sign, and it's connected with death, of course. Could be rather, I mean, the face of this event could be rather sinister, nefarious, even surreptitious and vengeful. Now, the shooter had killed two people, and I believe one, it was after he had lost in some game and somebody else had won, I believe. So you got this vengeful energy going on. And if going to Sabian symbols, 26 degrees Scorpio can be about strong subjugation and domination. So this is about really wanting to just like being this strong control and power, I believe. And given Mars being retrograde in Capricorn, it was no surprise that this was a self-inflicted shooting as well. And Pluto not being far from Mars, this could have played a role in resulting in death. And being a Capricorn, this could have been very premeditated and planned energy as well. And also Mars being close to the third house cusp in this chart, of course, it's the acrimonious angry thinking at this time. Now, also in this chart, Mars made perhaps a long square, I would call it, to Uranus. So it's not mind-boggling and bewildering that this was like an outburst of rather unpredictable, spontaneous, volatile actions, which of course was very shocking to others. And it's also not befuddling that this occurred during a full moon. Now, when you have full moons, of course, this could often signify very like loony-like and deranged, warped-like behavior. And the full moon being in Pisces, of course, very super sensitive sign, this could indicate very prodigious and inflated, convoluted, chaotic, all-encompassing emotional energy. Now, and remember also that the moon can be connected with the public as well. And given this was a public incident, of course, was involved with a lot of chaos. Now, in this chart for this event, the 7th house cusp is at 26 degrees Taurus. Of course, the 7th house governs open adversaries. 26 degrees, I mean, Taurus, this was very close to the algo position. Now, the algo degree, and also algo, the fixed star algo, can have a rather truculent, sometimes maybe recalcitrant energy, and it could be very fixated energy as well. So this could have been somebody that was very fixated on doing what he was going to do at this time. Now, also, in this chart, what I found interesting is that Capricorn being on the 3rd house cusp at 29 degrees, and the anaretic degree, of course, and I see 29 degrees as the full culmination of energy. And being that this is Capricorn on the 3rd, this could reflect very powerful, full, pessimistic, negative thinking perhaps where the mind was really a strong state of despondency and a state of melancholy, which could affect the rational thinking very strongly, and also perhaps very amplified intransigent, planned, and premeditated thinking as well, given that this is Capricorn on the 3rd house cusp. Now, Neptune is in the 4th house cusp, and this could indicate strong dissipation, dissolving of emotional security, which this event, of course, did, I'm sure, for a lot of people. Now, the Sun at the time, okay, being in Virgo, was making a very tight conjunction to the 10th house cusp of notoriety and recognition. And of course, you had the Moon in Pisces, made the full moon in Pisces, I should say, making a very tight conjunction to the 4th house cusp. So this opposition was right very close to the 10th house and 4th house axis on the cusp of those houses. And I think this is what might have really strongly amplified and intensified this energy, because of course when you have astrological energy and angular houses, or whether they're in the houses or just conjunct, they are this could very strongly intensify that energy. Now, the thing about this is there was also a grand Earth trine configuration which involved the Sun in Virgo, conjunct the 10th house cusp, Saturn in Capricorn in the 2nd house, and then Uranus in Taurus right by the 6th house cusp. So you have, I think there's a little bit of misconception regarding, grand trine configurations. Though generally speaking, they can be very auspicious. You have a very good blending of that energy as far as the configuration goes, and often it can lead to things that are very beneficial and positive. But at times, I think in some cases, I think perhaps in this event, what happens is you could have this energy going where you really have less obstruction and resistance involving it. You could actually, the energy may have been used maybe towards something nefarious, but the energy was able to be utilized with less resistance, if you understand what I'm saying. So I think a lot of times when you have a configuration like that, it really, a lot of times it just indicates that the energy is more easily utilized than if it wasn't, then as opposed to making adverse aspects. So anyway, now the thing about it is, when you look at this as well, breaking this down, now you have the Sun in Virgo making a conjunction to the 10th house cusp in this grand Earth trine configuration. Well, that could show shining, receiving notoriety through some kind of meticulous planning and strong attention to detail. Now you have Saturn in the 12th house. This could have to do with perhaps actually, oddly enough, maybe limited self-esteem is what maybe propelled some of this action by this person that did this. And also when you have Uranus making a conjunction to the 6th house cusp, well, that could really bring about perhaps doing something, bringing chaos and disruption in someone's daily routine, in someone's work life, and also at the same time causing extemporaneous, spontaneous, perhaps in this case negative health situations with someone. So I think and unpredictable ones as well. So a lot of times this energy from like these grand grand trine configurations, in most cases, I stated before, they could be very auspicious and advantageous, but what can happen in some cases, I think in this event, it just was able to be utilized easier with little resistance or obstructions from others. So anyway, at the same time, there was also a Yod configuration in the chart, which involves a sextile between Pluto and Neptune, in both these planets making an inconjunct to the apex point, which is Mercury in Leo in the 9th house. Now, unfortunately, sadly, with Pluto and Neptune involved, this was something where murder, death, and chaos could very well have been injected into something dramatically communicated globally, which is the Mercury in Leo in the 9th house energy. Now, yods in many cases can bring about inordinate, prodigious achievement, I believe, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be positive. At least that's what I believe. You can, I mean, sometimes you'll see these monumental events, I think, take place when you have yods, but it could be something adverse and negative that could take place, I think, as a result of these yod configurations. Now, another thing about this event, I look at this too in Chiron, very close to the 5th house cusp, Chiron in Aries. I mean, this could suggest wounds from truculent actions, gunfire at a place of amusement and something sports related. Of course, this was a Madden gaming event. Now, another thing too is that when I look at this chart, well, what's really sad is that you have the name of the place. Good luck, have fun. Game bar. Now, it was a game bar, and the Jupiter, ironically enough, the planet of luck and fortune, a very fortuitous planet, of course, was in the 12th house of restrictions and limitations. One person, I want to talk about one person that got shot and had survived. He had survived. He had a bullet hit his thumb. I believe his name is Drini Joka or some, I think Drini Joka. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right. But the thing about it is, now, this person, based on a post on his Twitter page, intimated the birth. Well, he had really, I mean, in its own way stated, I mean, the birthday would be June 20th, 1999. Now, I don't know that 100%, but it's likely it is at that date or very close to it. Now, based on this, he has Mercury in Cancer, the person that got shot in the thumb but survived. Mercury in Cancer at likely 22 or 23 degrees, depending on birth time. Now, given that, if this is true, that means transit Mars was making a long opposition to his natal Mercury. And remember that, of course, Mercury is associated with the hands, which could include the thumbs, of course, and Mars, of course, rules gunfire. Now, also at this time, transit Mercury, given if he was born on June 20th, 1999, transit Mercury also made a tight conjunction to his natal North Node in Leo. Now, this suggests that perhaps there was some destiny in connection with communication over something dramatic that would gain some kind of acclaim, notoriety, and recognition. Now, it could also have played a role maybe in getting shot in the thumb, because remember that Mercury again does rule the hands. In Leo, I mean, being connected, I mean, with this destiny thing, well, you understand what I'm saying. Leo, as far as the sign goes, can be connected with ferocity and savagery. This was a shooting that was that had that kind of that energy, that had that ferocity and savagery, I believe. And the North Node, again, can be about something, could be something connected with one's destiny. And sadly, this may have been, I mean, I see this as negative, of course. And Drini Joka, he was in his nodal return as well. And when you're in a nodal return, this could often be about life-altering events and something really that very significant can happen at this time. In this case, it was something dramatic that took place with a lot of this excitement, unfortunately, given that this was in Leo. So anyway, also, as far as his chart goes, transit Mars was also squaring his natal Mars at the time, which could indicate possible contentious and acrimonious experiences, which may involve some competitive situations. And of course, that event was about competition with that Madden tournament going on. So anyway, and also when I want to go back to this event chart, now the Sun in Virgo at this time, and Mercury and Leo, of course, are mutual receptions and each other's rulers. So mutual receptions often can make the energy of both placements work well together. So sadly, you may have had this supreme confidence and self-assuredness and thought, and then the Sun in Virgo, the focus on something that might have been meticulously planned with strong attention to detail, unfortunately may have worked very well together at this time. I couldn't find the birthday of the shooter David Katz. Now, I may at some point do a video delineating his chart if I can find his birth date online, but I have not found his birth date as of yet. And but although I have seen that there's been a number of online blogs and reports online have stated there has been a history of him with mental illness, so I would not be shocked or flabbergasted if he likely has his Mercury strongly afflicted, or perhaps the 12th house strongly afflicted, and maybe sometimes even malefics in the 3rd house can cause some mental illness as well. And he probably was having very negative adverse transits to his Mercury and or 3rd house ruler, and maybe even the 12th house. So I think that would be very possible. I would like to see his chart one time. I mean, it probably won't be able to get the time of birth, but I could at least see what his perhaps what his birth date is anyway, and do perhaps a solar/sunrise chart. And now the only thing that I wanted, one last thing I want to talk about, I thought was interesting in this event chart, is that Venus in Libra in the 11th house is a singleton, because there was no other planets in air signs at this time. There was nothing in Aquarius, there was nothing in Gemini, there were no additional planets in the zodiac sign Libra, so it does make it a singleton in the 11th house. And it's also I mean, looking at it's also the ruler of the 11th house as well. This is, I mean, of course, this could put much, more emphasis on enjoyment in something being in the 11th house and something that's group related. And the thing about this too, and I'm thinking that based on, this shooter, David Katz, my understanding from what I saw online, he was essentially at least close to, if not a loner. When Venus is a singleton, this could indicate, some kind of emphasis on relationships and trying to have balance in them. But I think in some cases, like in this event chart, this could be really maybe a lot of this shooting may have happened because of his difficulties in relationships, and this really accentuated this energy, because in the event chart, Venus made a number of adverse aspects, including, it wasn't major, but it had a semi-square to Saturn, it squared Pluto, it made it in conjunct to Neptune as well. So it had a number of adverse aspects in it, and I'm thinking maybe a lot of this was a result of maybe some suppressed or pent-up frustration due to him not having a typical relationship situation in his life, or just general difficulties in it. So I'm wondering if maybe this might have had the fact that he didn't have the relationship, maybe Venus and Libra, not having the relationships in his life to really have that balance in himself, or even have balanced relationships and what have you. So anyway, people, well, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for astrology and the mass shooting at Jacksonville, Florida. Stay tuned next time, where I am going to be giving you my Aquarius September 2018 horoscope forecast. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.